Well, let's stay with this story and related issues. The raid on the properties of the Guptas and their associates today suggests the net could be closing in on the notorious family. The NPA, of course, has also sent a red notice arrest warrant to Interpol to extradite members of the family back to South Africa. But legally, there is much that needs to happen before that extradition is processed. Well, to explain this, I'm joined now by legal expert Ulrich Roux. Ulrich, thank you so much for your time. You know, it's happening quite quickly. We've seen these two events over the last few days. We've also, of course, seen what's going on in Bloemfontein with associates of the Guptas. What do you think is the most significant of everything that's happening this week?
Well, I think both matters are equally significant. Of course, the Interpol red notice being issued officially means that the Gupta family members are regarded as international people of interest. We can't call them fugitives as yet, but definitely people who have now got an international arrest warrant that has been issued for them. So in the event that they do cross any international border, then those red notices could be effected and executed, and we could very well see them then being deported to South Africa to come and face the charges of corruption, fraud, money laundering in South Africa, that the NPA has leveled against them. But the seizing of the assets as well, that would have been on the back of a High Court application launched in terms of the Prevention of Organised Crime Act, and it is what we refer to as an anti-dissipation order. And what it effectively means is that the assets are seized because there's a case that has been made out to a court to demonstrate and to confirm that the assets were acquired through unlawful means, and that the assets must be seized and taken away from the people against who the order has been granted, so as to avoid the assets being dissipated and the assets being sold off for money, and the money possibly that should be going to the state being dispersed of. So both matters equally, of equal importance in my mind, but these are only the first steps in what promises to be a very long process by the NPA, should they wish to see this through successfully.
Yeah, the extradition process, I mean, we've seen with the Bushiris, when they fled to Malawi, South Africa, as part of SADC, I understand, has an extradition treaty with Malawi. But it gets immediately complicated. And there are lots of arguments that individuals, once in their home country or even another country, can say for not returning to South Africa. The Bushiris, for example, say they fear for their lives. So while there may be these treaties and there's Interpol saying this is an international issue now, it seems, as you say, there's quite a long process. Talk me through Dubai, the United Arab Emirates, and whether there's an extradition treaty between us and them.
Yes, so there was an application for the extradition of people who are arrested in Dubai to be extradited to South Africa. That, to my knowledge, has not been finalized as yet. But the importance is that Interpol, Dubai is a member of the Interpol International Policing system, as is South Africa. So if an Interpol red notice does pick them up, then an argument could be made for the Dubai nationals to extradite the people to South Africa, and would be an issue in terms whereof the Interpol international rules would have to be adhered to. But it is a complicated process. There is no doubt. I've had clients arrested on Interpol red notices in countries in Europe, and the process firstly starts with a person having to apply for bail in that country where they are arrested, if the red notice is effected and executed. And then they obviously have an opportunity to fight the extradition process. And if they can successfully prove, as has been the case in previous matters, that they would not receive a fair trial in South Africa, then one could very well see that extradition being set aside and being refused by the court in which these family members have been arrested. There was a very interesting matter dating back to 2004, and it was a person who was arrested on an arrest warrant issued by the South African authorities in Australia. And that person successfully proved in Australia to the Australian court, hearing his application for extradition, that should he be extradited to South Africa, that it would be tantamount to being sentenced to his death sentence. But on the other hand, we all remember the Shrindivani matter as well. And the South African authorities successfully extradited him to South Africa to stand trial here after he had been arrested in the UK. So every matter is unique because every matter has its own unique set of facts. But one thing is for certain is that the process of arresting and detaining a person in a different country, that person then being afforded the opportunity to apply for bail, and subsequent to that then being afforded the opportunity to fight against his extradition, those steps will all have to be followed, regardless of where these family members are possibly arrested by the issuing of these red notices.
All right, so talk to us about what this red notice triggers. You mentioned earlier if they try and cross a border, there'll be a red flag going up. But is it then the local police in Dubai who are duty-bound through Interpol to go and arrest these people? Is it that simple?
Yeah. So if there was a warrant of arrest issued by the South African authorities, then Interpol must firstly be satisfied that it is a valid warrant of arrest, that there is a reasonable foreseeability of a successful prosecution, and that the offence which these suspects are being accused of is indeed also an offence in the country in which they currently reside. Then it is an agreement between the countries, and if we take Dubai in this instance, it would have to be the South African police services who would have to work together with the Dubai authorities and the Dubai police services in an attempt to successfully have that warrant effected and possibly executed, because the international red notice must also be recognized as a warrant in the Dubai states as well. So it does get very complicated, but it is a process of the authorities having to work together in order to successfully effect that warrant. And as we sit here today, we know that the South African authorities say that they've applied for the Interpol red notice, but we don't have certainty as to what the corresponding authorities in Dubai have made of this, and whether they indeed do see this as a valid warrant, and whether they do indeed intend on cooperating with the South African authorities to have that warrant executed. And you could only have to wait and see, sure, and possibly hear what the NPA and the South African police services have to say about that as well.
So you've really incredibly made a great job of explaining the legal process and the police process on a local and international level, but also diplomacy and politics plays a role, doesn't it? I'm not sure if it's something you can really comment on, but certainly it seems to play a role in some way.
Yes, certainly. Unfortunately, when it comes to international relations, politics always, plays a part, and obviously the relations between the different states, and whether there is going to be cooperation or not. And unfortunately, one would like to see that in this instance it should not play a part. According to the South African authorities, there are grounds for a South African warrant to be issued, for Interpol to reciprocate that warrant, and then in turn for Dubai to also reciprocate and execute that warrant. But it's very difficult, I think, especially in this matter, given that politics has played such a big role, and the alleged effect that the Gupta family has had on South African politics and on politicians themselves. I think it's going to be very difficult for this matter to be dealt with purely on a criminal law aspect, and for politics not to get involved. But we would have to wait and see how that does transpire.
Absolutely. Certainly some really interesting developments this week. Thank you so much. That was legal expert Ulrich Roux. Now, the back